So started to pass out and started getting fuzzy and um, knew I was about ready to pass out. So I grabbed the tree and took some deep breaths, and I told myself, I said, David, you cannot pass out. You're in the middle of nowhere, and there's nobody that's going to save you. You've got to grunt and get out of this. And so composed myself, was able to kind of get a clear head again. I didn't pass out, which was great. I cannot tell you how bad physically I felt, really and mentally at that point. Regathered everything, and by the end of the day, it was about 6. I had made it within 3.5 miles of Cottonwood Pass. Snow everywhere, not a dry patch to be found. I was up on top, and I knew from here on it was actually all downhill. I was looking out over a place called Chicken Lake, was completely frozen over. But there was a little dry spot up on the very top of this ridge under this tree, and it's surrounded by rocks, but it wasn't quite level. And I'm like, I don't really want to camp on snow, to be honest. You can do it. But looked at the dirt and looked at the space and thought, got an ice axe. Took my ice axe out, I literally carved out a little section of that dirt and made it level enough to sleep. Put my tent up, and it was kind of crooked, but inside I kind of had a little dished out area where I was able to sleep. Slept pretty decent that night, and woke up the next day knowing this is going to be the day I'm going to get out of the Sierras. And I felt a hair better, but I still felt pretty bad. I just didn't have as far to go that day. So June 14th, woke up, started heading for Cottonwood Pass. It was incredibly difficult. There was hardly any tracks. Most of the tracks at night had kind of glazed over, and you couldn't see footprints. But I'd been through that area. I knew where I had to go, what general direction. I made it to Cottonwood Pass. There was a guy coming northbound, and we talked for a little bit. And I said, "How's it look down there?" He goes, "Oh," he completely lied to me. He said, "Oh yeah, it's great. You won't need your micro spikes much longer, just a little bit more, and you'll be good." So 4 miles down that pass, the first mile was just horrible snow with sideways traverse, which is a sideways traverse when you're going across the real steep slope sideways, is like the most dangerous, because if you slip, you slide, and that's why you carry an ice axe, is to self-arrest and slow yourself down. So the first mile was just miserable snow across sideways passes. I got down, and then the second mile was melting snow and water and marsh. You couldn't find a trail. I just kind of kept going, and then the last 2 miles were pretty close to almost level. Came kind of down into a meadow, and once I hit there, it started getting warm. It started getting hot is what it started getting. But I was feeling good because I knew I was not long from safety, and hoping there'd be somebody at the parking lot. So all of a sudden, I looked and I saw the shine of a gleam off of a windshield and some cars at about 100 yards distance. I got about 100 feet from the parking lot, and another hiker was coming out. And he said, "Hey man, your limo awaits. It's the silver Subaru. He just dropped me off." So I made it to the parking lot, and sure enough, as I crossed into the parking lot, there's a guy standing there, and he says, "Are you a PCT hiker?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "I'm your ride." And I went, "Awesome, thank you." And so guy's retired, and that's what he does. I was number 174 of hikers that he shuttled this year. And he says, "Is there anybody behind you? Because I'd like to take a few more." I said, I don't know. He said, "Well, let's wait a little bit." And I said, "Okay, I have time to go to the bathroom," because I looked over, and there it was. A glorious pit toilet. I'm telling you, when you've been in the woods, pit toilet's just wonderful. And so he said, "Yeah, let's throw your stuff in the gear. Let's wait a few minutes." And so I did, and used the pit toilet, and there was a bench there. Man, I was like, boy, life changes when you've been in the woods and been in the wilderness, and like a pit toilet and a wooden bench. Man, I was like in heaven, man. And my pack was off, man. It was in the car. So I'm just sitting there munching on some candy I had in my pocket and waiting, and it was great. 2 other hikers about 20 minutes later came out of the woods, 2 guys from Spain. Interesting, I don't know if I've told you this, but I bet 40% of the hikers here are from other countries, and met somebody from just every country you can imagine. And so guys shuttle us down to Lone Pine, which is down on the valley floor, about 15 miles way down there. We went from 72 degrees, and when we got down there, it was 95 degrees. Lone Pine is on Highway 395, kind of in Owens Valley. And so then it became to figure out, how do I get home? So the gentleman dropped me off at a McDonald's, and there was a bus stop next door. I looked at the bus. There was a bus that runs up 395. It was too late. It was already gone. And so I really wrestled with, do I just hitchhike? Do I try to figure out Bishop's 55 miles away? There's a rental car place there. Do I call Tanya? I just felt bad about having her. I mean, it was, a long tow. And Tioga Pass is closed, so she could have gone up over 108 and then south down 395. So I called Tanya after I ate. And of course, what did she say? I'll be there in 6 hours, is what she said. She looked at the computer. No problem. And I'll come get you. We got to get you home. Figure out what's wrong. So I said, well, I'm going to try to hitchhike north. And so there's 4 or 5 towns. And the one right at the base, when you come out of 108, is Bridgeport. I said, well, I'll get as far as I can, and I'll text you if I get rides. So I went out, stuck my thumb out, and it was like there for 50 minutes. And a young guy named Scott finally pulled up and said, hey, do you need a ride? And I said, yeah. So hitchhiking does not favor a 54-year-old scruffy-looking man who smells because he's been in the woods for 9 days and is carrying a backpack with an ice axe and spiky crampon-looking things. You hear the story, I don't want to pick up, it might be an axe murderer. Well, I'm literally standing there with an axe hanging off my backpack, so it was kind of funny. So a young man named Scott picked me up in his pickup truck, and we had a good talk, and he said, I can take you as far as Big Pine. I said, which is 40 miles away. I'm like, yeah, that's great. And so we were talking. I thought it was kind of funny. I said, you see the hikers down here often? He said, yeah, this time of year, season. And I said, do you pick them up very often? He goes, yeah, no, I never pick them up. He goes, they always look kind of nerdy. He said, but I saw you, and you kind of look like a normal guy, so I figured I'd give you a ride. So anyway, 54-year-old guy who smells and is carrying an ice axe kind of looks normal. So I thought that was kind of funny. We had a great talk and got to Big Pine, and I walked across the street and stuck my thumb out. 10 minutes later, another guy named Reed, who was from LA, who was heading up to, he's a birder is what he called himself. And he had a bunch of camera gear, and he's going up to take pictures of birds, and I was like Echo Lake or something like that. And so had a great talk. He was really a fun guy, and he took me to Bishop. And so I'm texting Tanya, I'm in Big Pine. No, now I'm headed to Bishop. And so each section closed the gap as far as how far she had to drive. Bishop was a busy day. Looked like they had a festival going on. Stuck my thumb out for about 40 minutes. I was standing next to this place called the Holy Smoke Texas Barbecue, and I wasn't having much luck. About a guy pulled in there and ate, and he had a Toyota pickup full of stuff in the back. And he came back out a while later, and he walked over to me, and he said, hey, where are you headed? And I said, well, I'm headed to either Levining, I think is how you say it, or Bridgeport, ultimately Bridgeport. And so he said, well, I'm going to Carson City. I'll give you a ride all the way to Bridgeport if you want. And so I texted Tanya and said, first it was on my way to Levining, and then eventually he said, well, I can take it all the way to Bridgeport. So I said, I'm on my way to Bridgeport. Call me when you get there so I know where I'm coming to. And so I basically hitchhiked, 155 miles in 3 different groups of people. Made it to Bridgeport. Got to the Shell station where she was waiting. She had a change of clothes for me and deodorant, which I haven't had for a while. And got a soda. And I said, honey, you get to drive because I'm just not feeling good. And plus, when you haven't driven for a while and you've been in the woods, everything seems so fast. I got to tell you, that's coming from me, an ex-race car driver. Everything seemed fast. So I was like, just go ahead and drive. So she drove me home. We got home about 10:20 that night. And so I woke up at 11,500 feet in my tent, surrounded by snow. And by 10:30 that night, I was at home in Modesto, safe and sound, and it felt so good to be safe and home.